On a quiet, snowing January night in 2022, Karen Reed and her boyfriend John O'Keefe decided to go to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. While they were there, they were spending time with friends, and they had a few drinks, had something to eat, and just after midnight, aka last call, decided that they were going to head over to Brian Albert's place, who wanted to celebrate with his son by having a beer. Now, after they leave the bar, nobody knows what really happened. What we do know is that John O'Keefe is found sometime later in the morning, around 6 a.m., out in front of Brian Albert's house. Now, depending on who you talk to, Karen was responsible, or the people in Brian's house were responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. Before we get into that, True Crime fans, I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you folks, especially on this video. And hit that like button so we can get the video out to as many people as possible as we're growing the channel. So that being said, let's get right into it. Now, everything that happens in this case is prime for a conspiracy theory. And believe me, there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are going around on this one. Now, again, you could be on one of two sides. You're either on the side of John O'Keefe and his buddies in the police department, or you're on the side of Karen Reed and believe that she has been framed for the murder of John O'Keefe. So let's hit both sides and we'll decide at the end, with your help, where do we sit on this one? Because she is going through trial right now, and it's kind of hard to try to figure out, what's truth, what's not truth. So on the side of John's police brothers, the story goes like this. Karen had left the bar with John and she took him over to Brian Albert's house. Now, at some point, John would have gotten out of the car and they believe that Karen Reed backed into John and essentially broke a taillight and then left him there to freeze overnight. Or what the prosecution is saying is that Karen Reed was intoxicated and left the scene, ends up going home. Sometime after 4:30 a.m., she wakes up John O'Keefe's niece just to get some information on who she should call and to get Jennifer McCabe's number, who she did not have at that time, and then call the wife of Brian Albert, trying to look for John O'Keefe. Now, at some time, the girls come over. They decide to go back over to Brian Albert's place. As they're pulling up, Karen gets out of the vehicle, identifies John O'Keefe, ends up moving some snow from him, tries to resuscitate him, and he ends up getting taken away. Now, during this exchange, the ladies say that they heard Karen say that she hit him, basically referencing over and over again that she hit John O'Keefe. Now, she also said that she didn't remember how she got home and that she was heavily intoxicated. Okay. Now, if you go from Karen Reed's perspective or the defense perspective, they're stating that something had happened inside that home. So John O'Keefe had made it to the house. At whatever time he got out of the vehicle, Karen Reed decided that she wasn't going to go into the house with him. She was tired and she just wanted to go home. So at that point, John O'Keefe went into the house by himself, and whatever happened, we'll never know, but he ends up outside with some weird things that happen. Now, a couple of the things that the defense does point out that I think is a little tricky and is a little bit weird is if you look at the arm of John O'Keefe, it looks like there's some bite marks, and it looks like it could have been an animal that got a hold of his arm. Now, this is where I think the conspiracy kind of starts up for me, is that Brian Albert actually had a German Shepherd at one point, which could have created some of those puncture wounds, and that German Shepherd ends up getting given away before the investigation goes down. Now, if you listen to Karen's defense team, they are saying that these police officers, some of them may be corrupt, right? Not proven, but they make a lot of allegations in the corruption. And they say that they're banding together to frame Karen Reed. Now, this has gotten pretty crazy as you've seen billboards of Karen Reed and people that are protesting, people that are donating to the legal fund, and really think that the police are just sticking together on this one and that Karen Reed is being railroaded. Now, Karen Reed does say that there was a couple of instances with Colin Albert, who is the nephew of Brian Albert, and that John O'Keefe didn't get a hold of him. She believes, and her team believes, that at some point John O'Keefe was beaten up in the house and then was left for death afterwards. Now, is that a possibility? It very much so could be a possibility. So we're going to stop there, and I want to hear from you folks. What did I miss, or what would you add? Put those down in the comments. Either you're on one side where you think that Karen Read did run over John O'Keefe, or you're on the other side that Brian Albert and Colin Albert ended up beating him up and leaving him for dead. Either way, John O'Keefe gets left out in front of the house, and that's basically what happens. He ends up dying because he's exposed to the winter storm. So a couple of things that I want to point out. First and foremost, no matter what happened here, I am having a hard time wrapping my mind around how somebody could just leave a body outside. So let's start with Karen Read. So if Karen Read did hit John O'Keefe, did she feel it when she hit him with the vehicle? She would have had to hit him hard enough for him to break the tail light. And then what explains what happened to his forearm? Was there another animal, maybe a raccoon or something, that tried getting a hold of him while he was laying there, and then he ultimately succumbs to his injuries because it's so cold out there and he just can't survive the elements. Now, Karen Read goes home, decides to sleep it off. Maybe she knew she hit him and just wanted to make sure that she didn't come back as intoxicated. Or maybe she didn't know she hit him and she didn't actually feel it because maybe her Lexus is heavy enough where you wouldn't actually feel like you bumped into somebody. Now, if she was intoxicated, maybe she did feel it but didn't understand what it was or doesn't remember that she felt that. Now, that's a very real possibility. Now, on the other hand, if you're Brian Albert or Colin Albert and you beat this man up, would you just leave him out in front of your house for somebody to come back and find? Now, a real possibility is maybe a fight did occur in that house, and maybe John O'Keefe was fighting because he was a pretty big guy. Maybe he was fighting both of them, and maybe after the fight, he decided to walk out and something happened and he ended up falling and passing out. And then again, nobody had found him until Karen Read came out with McCabe and with Albert's wife. Either way, both of those, there's realities that could happen in each one of them, right? The one thing that I'm having a hard time talking away is, one, Karen didn't know about her tail light, and then when she tried to explain that away, she was basically like, I don't remember. And then they found the red and clear plastic close to John O'Keefe's body. That still sticks with me. Now, if it's a conspiracy theory that John O'Keefe died in the house, are we saying that Brian ended up going to the house where the Lexus was, breaking that back taillight, and then planting the evidence there? I mean, that's a possibility too, but is that what we think happened? The other piece that kind of sticks out is that if you did, for some reason, kill John O'Keefe inside the house and then left him outside, out in front of the house, what are the chances that you would know that it would be Karen Read that would ultimately find John O'Keefe? That piece sticks out to me a little bit as well, because she almost knew exactly where he was going to be. Not saying that she knew that's where he died, but maybe that's where she dropped him off. And in her mind, without saying anything, she just assumed that, that was the last place she saw him. And then that's the place that she ultimately finds him, or close to, in proximity. So I don't know. I don't know on this one. This is where I need your folks' help. To me, the logical signs are showing that John O'Keefe got out of the vehicle, and since we didn't hear anything about them fighting at the bar, I don't think there was a fight going on. I really feel like maybe Karen Read just wanted to go home and wanted to sleep it off, and for whatever reason, maybe she had backed into John O'Keefe and really didn't understand that happened, ends up going home, wakes up at 4:30, has that, really weird pit in her stomach feeling that something bad has happened, so she decides that she's going to call around looking for John. Now, that would be my theory, is that she did have something to do with it, maybe not intentionally, knowing that something didn't happen. The reason why I say that is John O'Keefe was with Brian Albert all night, and we don't hear of them arguing at all. Now, we do hear of an instance that happened with Colin Albert a few months before, with him throwing, some Bud Light cans from a Silverado, and that he had to chase Colin off. And I guess they got that on tape as well. But either way, was that something that would really warrant John O'Keefe getting murdered over? And would somebody that's in law enforcement help their nephew essentially murder another cop? It's hard to say. Now, is there something that could have happened in that house? Yeah, absolutely. There's just a lot of evidence that's pointing towards Karen Read. So I guess the one thing that I'll leave you with is that I am leaving the door open because I don't know. And I'm not saying that Karen Read is guilty. I'm just saying logic is showing or pointing her way. But for any good conspiracy, there would have to be logic that was planted, right? And in this case, maybe some of this stuff didn't add up. And maybe that's why it is such a conspiracy to this point. The other thing I want to mention is that in a small town like Canton, there's a lot of rumors that go around. And if you read the stories, they say that the city's pretty divided on one way or the other. That would tell me there's a lot of rumors that are going around. And that would also tell me that maybe some of those rumors are true and some of those rumors aren't leaking out into the media for us to know. So what is going on in Canton? Is it a case where Karen Read is being railroaded and ultimately may pay the price for a crime that somebody else committed? Is it Brian Albert who's covering his own tail and was smart enough to say, hey, I'm going to make this look so obvious that nobody's going to question that we put John O'Keefe outside? Or is there something else that happened here? And how do you explain the bite marks or the punctures that are on John O'Keefe's arm? Did that come from the German Shepherd that Albert had? So again, I want to hear from you folks. Leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you think. Which side are you on? Or are you like me, kind of sitting in the middle, getting to play both sides and being able to talk it through? Also, hit that like button. Let's get this video out to as many people as possible. I want to continue to grow the channel, and subscribe down below if you haven't already done so. If you've made it this far, it's worth that subscribe. If there's anything else we can do to make your viewing pleasure be much more pleasurable, let me know that as well. And we will see you back here next week. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Talk to y'all later.